So, as I mentioned, here with me is Ceruti, owner of important high-quality producer of rice in northern Italy. The name of the company is Cascina Oschiena. It is Friend of the Earth certified. And I am the director of the WSO, the World Sustainability Organization, an NGO which has, over the years, launched two important certification standards, Friend of the Sea, for products from sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, and Friend of the Earth for products from sustainable agriculture and farming. Over the years, over 1,000 companies from more than 100 countries have products certified with one of our certifications. So let's look at the world rice market. Why is rice important? Because it generates 21% of global human per capita energy and 15% of per capita protein. It also uses up 40% of world's irrigation water, and it is responsible for up to 10% of global methane emissions. 15% of world's wetlands are in rice fields, or rice fields are in 50% of world's wetlands. So this is an important responsibility for producers in this area in order to preserve this area, these important habitats. So where is rice produced? Here you can see a map. It is produced both in tropical as well as temperate areas, and Southeast Asia is the main producer, as you can see, but also temperate countries like US. Different ways to produce rice depending on the rice phase water regimes. Most of it is produced in irrigated fields, 75%. The remaining in rain-fed lowlands or uplands or flood-prone swamplands. Major producers, as you can see from the map, are China, India, Indonesia. And China, being also a major consumer, is not a major exporter. India is the major exporter, and US is also on the biggest ones in the list. Importing countries are, again, China, and among the main importers is the European Union. So it's interesting to see that especially in the recent decades, the area used for rice production has not increased, while production since the 60s has tripled, reaching the current 500 million tons per year. This means that yields have tripled. Here you can see the trend, for example, on the right in India. It's almost an exponential trend, an exponential growth, and on the left in Southeast Asia. So this is very relevant in terms of environmental impact. Of course, yields vary per country. Here you see those who have the highest yields. So in order to reduce the environmental impact, at least in terms of land use, it's important to have knowledge transfer between these countries at the global level. There are some hints and some studies which suggest that there might be a declining in the yields, maybe due to climate change. These are still to be proved scientifically, but it could be an interesting factor to be considered in the future. It's important and encouraging that the FAO and other studies seem to conclude that the increase in yields will allow to satisfy the projected increase in demand with a surplus. But let's look at the potential environmental impact of rice. First of all, it's important to compare rice impacts with those of other food products. And we can see that in terms of equivalent food units with equivalent kilocalorie production, the rice is among those foods which have lowest environmental impact, all through the potential range of impacts. So in this graph, you can see it is better performing in terms of greenhouse gas, there's lower emissions, in terms of land use, energy use, acidification, eutrophication. No surprise then that if you are opting for rice milk, you are making a better impact, a lower impact on the environment compared to dairy milk. But there are some concerns about rice impact, in particular in terms of the global greenhouse production, greenhouse potential, and in particular for some production, it has a potential to produce a very high level of methane. That's why it is important to introduce and promote, as we are doing with the Friend of the Earth certification, those producers which have implemented measures to reduce emissions. Is organic rice a solution? There are different studies, of course, but this one shows that if you look at all the potential impacts, as we saw previously, so greenhouse gases, land use, and so on, it is not always improving the performance. And in some cases, it can have a higher impact per unit of production than conventional or rice produced with integrated pest management or similar. What is important is that, at least in the US, but this is very likely true also in Europe, with the introduction of new technologies and improvement methods in the cultivation of rice, there has been a substantial reduction to almost half, at least 1/3 of the impact of the rice production from the 80s to nowadays. If we look at all the different potential impacts, at all the range of impacts. In particular, in the US, it is estimated that land use efficiency has improved 40%, water usage has decreased over 50%, and similar improvements have occurred also in other potential impacts, also in terms of reduction in soil erosion, etc. Very important, as we mentioned, and it is not true only for the US, it is true also for Italy, for other European countries, and elsewhere globally. Since a good part of the rice production is carried out in wetland areas, in protected areas, which are very important for bird migration and for other fauna and flora. A good management and the protection of these habitats by the producers themselves has led to very important and tangible conservation results. So let's look at some initiatives to improve rice sustainability. Well, there is the most important at the global level is the Sustainable Rice Platform, established in 2011, created by the UN Environment and the International Rice Research Institute. It promotes resource efficiency and sustainability and it has developed and proposes sustainable production standards. The system of rice intensification, SRI, is a rapidly spreading methodology for increasing the productivity by changing the management of plants, soil, water, and nutrients. It has been validated by hundreds of scientific papers and currently adopted by up to 20 million farmers in 61 countries. And depending on its good application, it has led to increases, important increases in yields, reduction in use and need of seeds, and up to 50% water savings. Other initiatives, such as hybrid rice production, seem to have a good performance in terms of reduction of toxicity and reduction of environmental impact. It's also interesting to mention fish farming in rice ponds. This overall reduces land use and improves the production, reducing also the total environmental impact. Friend of the Earth, among the initiatives to promote more sustainable rice production and agricultural production, is an initiative of the World Sustainability Organization. It was established in 2016. It has a set of requirements for certification, going from the reduction of the impact on the pre-existing habitat, protection of wildlife, in general impact reduction, compliance with legislation, and also social accountability and energy efficiency requirements. Several products have already been certified Friend of the Earth at the global level, from quinoa and coffee in Central America and Latin America, to rice, to tomato, and so on, wine, oils. And as far as rice is concerned, there are three products which have been, and three origins which have been certified, that you can see here, in Sri Lanka, in Italy, and one of them is the product of Cascina Oschiena. There are different rice products, and Alicia will tell you more about this. So I thank you for your interest, and I'll pass the slides to Alice. And before this, if you allow me, I am launching a poll, and the question today that you can answer by voting directly on your screen is: what value has biodiversity conservation in rice quality? Okay, Alice, I'll pass the screen to you.
Thank you very much. Rice farmers. We are rice farmers. I'm a rice farmer, and just briefly to tell you our story, because for me it's important to share that if I'm here today, it's thanks to my grandfather. He bought the farm in 1942, because today when people tell me there are not a lot of young farmers today, well, the answer is it's not easy, because if you're not lucky as I am to have a family farm, today farming is really, really difficult. But my story is a bit weird, let's say, because my grandfather bought a farm, but it has always been rented to farmers, to other farmers, because he was not a farmer. So actually my life was in the city. I studied economics. I lived abroad in Leuven in Belgium. My first job was actually in New York City. I did my first internship. So actually I would have never thought to start farming. I studied economics, worked in Ferrero, and then one day my family, especially my uncle, my aunt, started thinking of renting the farm, of selling the farm. And there, also thanks to my mother's support, my boyfriend and now my husband's support, I decided to take a really life-changing choice. So I quit my job and started farming. You know, the luck was that it was a really thought choice, because at the beginning I started going only Saturdays and Sundays, starting to see if I could do both. So always continuing my office job with the high heels and my jacket on. But then I understood that actually I couldn't wait Friday to come, or for Friday to come, to go on the farm. And so at that point I said, yes, this is what I want to do. And so I started farming myself. Of course, I didn't have the knowledge. So what I did is I followed an evening course at the high school, farming high school, and then thanks also to network. So I took part to Young Farmers Organization, that they taught me how to drive a tractor. We started buying our equipment and started farming. Fundamental for me was, as I was saying, network, especially FIJA. I started lobbying for farmers, for young farmers. And I was elected CIJA Vice President. CIJA stands for European Young Farmers Council. So I had this honor to represent over 2 million young farmers in Europe for 3 years. I just wanted to underline this, because if I'm here today, if I started farming in a more sustainable way, it is thanks to exchanging experiences, exchanging best practices. Thanks to this Young Farmers Organization, we managed to do some joint ventures, and we went to Valencia to see how they farm in Albufera. We went to Texas and Arkansas, and we went to Vietnam. And every trip we did, I really learned a lot. I learned how to farm in a more sustainable way. Like in Vietnam, they grow flowers on the margin. And also in Valencia, they really do a lot for birds and for biodiversity, since they are so close. They are inside the park, actually. And then I took also part of the EURISE, the European project, always on the networking with Spanish rice farmers, Portugal, Bulgaria, and Greece. And this brought me to EcoRice. EcoRice is actually the first tangible sustainable project we did. We started planting trees on the margin. So, going to how we farm. As I was saying, I had no farming experience. So when I started farming, I started thinking, how do I want to farm? Am I able, and do I want to be a very productive farmer that maximizes production, that reaches the 8 tons per hectare? No. Both because I'm not from a farming sector, so I had less knowledge, but especially because this was not how I saw myself farming, how our vision, our mission. And so we started saying, we want to farm in a different way. What does this mean? Well, we want to be more sustainable. And so we started planting trees. First thing we did, now we are over 5,000 trees planted on the margins, and we turned 5 hectares of land in wood. And actually, it is one of the only places where there's still an entire wood in the rice field. But of course, I cannot hide behind the figures, because I live of this job. So we cannot be too romantic. We cannot say just let's plant trees and butterflies and dragonflies. No, because I have to have a plus at the end of the year. And so what we started to think is, how can we do this? Always following our vision of farming, where of course we produce less than conventional farming. So we started to think of a multifunctional farm. This means combining other activities. This is why we started direct selling with our own brand, and also having schools on the farm and tourism. So opening our farm. What we really think is, we are proud of what we do. We think that it is the right way to go. So our gates are always open. Anyone can come and see how we farm. And it is important for us to create networks with other farmers, with people that want to come on the farm, with tourists, schools, etc., etc. We are very lucky, as you see in the slide. We have a very historical farm, the first of the 13th century. So what also we did is total respect of the history. We didn't do any new construction in cement, keeping all the old buildings. So also our tractors, the modern horses, as we say, horsepowers, we keep them in the old stables where they kept the horses and the working bulls 200 years ago. But since we're here talking about environment and biodiversity, I would like to be more tangible and share a bit more of what we do on the farm. So what we're doing is farming historical varieties of rice. So you will find in our fields real Carnaroli varieties, authentic Carnaroli, authentic arborio. Because now there's an Italian law that allows to sell as arborio, as Carnaroli, also similar varieties that are not Carnaroli and arborio. And we are trying to keep alive this historical varieties. Another thing that I want to underline is the water sowing. Because now some farmers are starting to go towards dry sowing. And for biodiversity reasons, we continue to do 100% of our farm water sowing, flooded sowing, as you see in the slide. What does this bring in result? This brings to a higher number of aquatic biodiversity. Aquatic biodiversity means microbiodiversity, and then, of course, also butterflies and dragonflies and frogs and everything that is living in the water environment. As I was saying before, as you see in the slide, now the trees that you see in the slide are at least 1.5 meters, 2 meters high. We planted over 5,000 trees, all of native species. We created over 10 kilometers of ditches around the field. What does this mean? That for every hectare of land inside our field, we created a ditch that is 60 centimeters width and 40 deep, so that also when we dry our rice, because rice is not an aquatic plant, to root, the field has to be dried out, because the root has to go in the soil. This is terrible for aquatic biodiversity because we take away the water and, of course, also the biodiversity inside. And so, doing these ditches, we maintain water all the right season. And this, with all the studies of the university students, we saw that there's a high increase in aquatic biodiversity. We keep live fallow parts of the field because we are very lucky. We have the black the godwit, a very migratory nesting in our fields, and other migratory birds that are very common in the rice field area. And since a lot of birds that don't need water to nest, because if you flood the field, you just drown the nest, we keep like fallow parts of our fields. But I'll tell you a bit more about this later. And then we don't use glyphosate. We don't even cut the grass on our margins, as you see also in the slide. So if you come, and of course I would be very happy to see our rice fields, you will see that all the margins are just, the grass is just there growing. And then cover crops and minimum tillage. We sow 100% on 100% of our land. We sow cover crops in the winter. That is an organic fertilizer. We sow vetch, that is a nitrogen fixing crop, and then we are going towards minimum tillage. Not easy because plowing has a lot of advantages. Minimum tillage increases carbon stocking, so we are still working on the best practice. We need to learn more, of course. And so this is what we are doing. But since I know that we don't have a lot of time, I wanted to tell you a bit of our enormous project. For us, it's a very important project because it's a project that we've been dreaming and studying about over 4 years now. And last year, after my son was born, also thanks to a measure of the Rural Development Project program, so it's EU funding, very important to underline, we were able to turn 25 hectares that has always been rice fields, so very productive fields. We decided to turn them into wetlands. So on the left you see the rice field, and on the right you see what you will see right now. We started on the 12th of February And now the Cascina Oschiena biodiversity audit is finally ended, and we've managed to flood the area. Why did we do this project? It's 1/4 of our farm, so it's really an enormous project for us. Because we believe in biodiversity. We think that it's important that in the quality, the definition of quality of rice for us is not only the rice that you have in your plate, but it is also what has been done before. So what is there all around rice cultivation? Also biodiversity. Also attention for biodiversity. Of course, the main target was the nesting of the birds, as I was saying before. So it's important that in the season of nesting, there is not too much water in this area. These are technical aspects. I won't go too much into detail. As you see, where the water comes in and the water comes out. Where you see the blue is the ponds that are 20 centimeters deep, that are always there's always water in them. And then what you see around each field is the ditches for predators. Why? Because the main cause of not success of bird nesting is the predators. And so we did these ditches against the predators. How did we manage to do this project? I didn't have all the knowledge. And this was another amazing thing for us, because we put together over 10 people, everyone with its own knowledge, from bird watchers to environmentalists, to people of the park, to people experts in grass, in trees. And we also were helped by BirdLife Europe, because the best area for nesting of the migratory birds are the wetlands of Holland, in Holland. So we managed to try to do the best environment, taking examples from the wetlands in Holland, where you see, for example, the biodiversity crossing, where the margins are not very steep, where the biodiversity can go up, and the landing for the birds. In 2 words, what were the implementation steps? Earth moving to create these big chambers in the field, chalk tracing, because the ditches had to be done precisely there for the project. Then with the excavators we went in, dug the ditches, and then we planted trees. In the downer layer of the slide, you see the section. So you see grassland, then there's the ditch against predators, then there's a higher part of the field where there's no water for the nesting of the birds, and then you see other margins that are not very steep, so that the biodiversity, the chicks of the nest, can go in and out, in and out. As I was saying, not all year round the management has to be the water management has to be the same. Nesting months, April, May, and June, the water is lower. Then we will start. And as soon as the chicks will fly away. Now, actually, we have a lot of chicks of black-tailed godwit and other birds, so we are very happy. Also, this is the first year. It's amazing how nature responds right away. And then we will start flooding again, because for the heron, the stilts, and other birds, the bittern, that need a higher level of water in the autumn-winter season. As I was saying, that we have especially supervised by the Paolo Bray that is helping us doing all the environmental decisions. These are the main targets: the black-tailed godwit, the lapwing, the stilts, and the bittern. As you see, the black-tailed godwit on our farm, the bittern actually is a picture taken 10 days ago in our new wetland. The bird watchers that helped us, and this for us is really important, because it's a real teamwork, and this is something that I want to stress again. I don't know why. Doesn't slide. Okay. Here, no problem. Here is, as you see, the wetland that is finally alive. The first benefit of our wetland is our horse, and for us, that is lying there in the wetland, is something that another concept that I would like to share is that what really brought us to do this, apart, of course, because, you know, obviously thankful to what we have. We have a farm, we have a wonderful kid, and we live there, so the first people that benefit is us, of course, is that what we think is that preserving is not enough. You know, everybody talks about preservation, about conservation. Yes, but I think that as a society, we have to take a step forward and also give back. Give back because it is really necessary. And this is the milestone that brought us to implement this wetland, this project. This is my child watching the wetlands be alive, and this, of course, is a proverb that is very famous, but I think that is always important to have in mind. To finish, I just would like to say that I am proud and happy to be certified friend of the earth. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alice, for presentation, and what you're doing is enlightening, and I'm sure that everybody has appreciated, and we are also proud to have you among the companies which are Friend of the Earth certified. It's very important for us, and I think you are spearheading the concept. So let's see if there are some questions. Okay, so we have a question here. Do you think consumers are willing to pay more for sustainable rice? How is consumer responding to certified rice? Okay, well, I think you are the best one to answer this question, Alice.
Yeah, I think this is a really good question, and I hope that the consumer will implement, you know, the awareness. But I think that it's on the consumer's shoulders, but it's also on us as producers. As I was saying, I think that the key of the future, and the future of farms, of us farmers that grow in a sustainable way, is to be transparent. I think that if a consumer, if anyone that is interested comes to see a sustainable farm, can be rice, can be oil, can be whatever product, is willing to pay more if he or she can touch with his hand or her hand what she was gonna buy, you know? So this is what really pushed us to implement tourism, to implement school didactics, really be transparent. Gates always open. On our pack of rice, we actually put the map of our field, so anybody can drive also without coming on the farm, drive by and see with its own eyes where our rice is farmed, you know. So I think this is the key, and this is the only way, and this is the only way for us also to have, you know, because sometimes when we think that we're a bit crazy in some things, also this new project, sometimes I get scared because, of course, it is dangerous for our economic viability. But I think that if we are proud and when we share what we do, this could be the key for implementing sustainable production.
Thank you very much, Alice. We have another question. What importance do you think has the plastic in packaging for sustainable rice?
It is a very actual question. I think
I think the question is regarding, in general, the importance of reducing the impact or the potential impact it disperses in the environment of packaging.
Yes, exactly. I think that it's not a lot about the matter of the healthiness of the product, but it's a matter of a healthiness of the environment. And so, yes, we are actually another packaging without plastic, and I think that, as Paolo was saying, it's really a matter of a bit of what I was saying of giving back. You know, now we are already very late, and so we have to start doing something to reduce plastic now, and we should have done it before, but yes, I think that this is a major issue there, yes.
Well, I have a couple of questions for you, Alice. You mentioned you have traveled a lot globally before and probably also now visiting various producers around the globe, from the US to Asia and so on. What is the best and worst that you've seen, if you may, without pointing the finger, but in general, which is the best one and which is the one which has more potential for improvement, let's say, in terms of...
It's a really hard question because I really saw so different realities. Just to tell you, a farmer in Vietnam has less than 1 hectare. A farmer in the US, to be economically viable, has to have 400, 500 hectares. So it's really hard to compare, So while in Vietnam, there's a lot of environmental projects, very interesting. On the other hand, the use of pesticides is still to be very improved for the security of the farmers, improved for how they manage their land. So I would say you have a good practice and a bad practice in one same way. And also in the US, you see in Vietnam there's no technology. So under that point of view, has to be improved for the quality of life because it's not very high. On the other hand, you see in the US, super technology, but I'm not sure if that is the real quality of life in my feeling. So I think that is always a matter of finding the right compromise and the right solution to increase quality of life, because I think that is then the key. Also, it's what is bringing us to farm and live how we are living, improving quality of life, trying to balance all the inputs.
Okay, thank you. And you've gone through a lot of efforts, and we have seen that you have dedicated a good part of your field nature, basically. And so the question is, are you still managing to be profitable? How do you see the future of your company?
Yes, as I was saying, well, first of all, I was lucky because I was lucky that the EU gives funds for this project. So this is something that I could have not implemented without EU funds. First of all, because this is something that has to be clear. Of course, now I have to start. 25 hectares of land are more profitable than 25 hectares of biodiversity. And so at this point, I really have to start to increase my multifunctionality, my direct selling, and the direct selling, the tourism, and of course. But then again, you also have to think that you have to give a price to the quality of life, because nobody ever does that. And so I hope that combining the increase of how we live, because of course we live with my child there, and let's say profit from other activities linked to farming, we hope to be sustainable under an economic point of view.
Thank you very much, Alicia. I think it was a very interesting webinar. You provided us with very interesting information. So for all of you, we are here also as Friends of the Earth. We provide a certification services. So if there's anybody interested, please feel free to contact us. But not only, we are also an NGO, so our mission is to provide you also with information and support on good practices, just like we did today. So feel free to contact us also if you need some assistance, help, or information in this regard. And so I invite you all to attend the next webinar, which is going to be about sustainable oil production, again with another testimonial from a very high quality oil production here in Italy, Olio Roy. It's going to be the same time of the day on the 27th of June, next Thursday. So thank you again, Alice.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and let's stay in touch. Thank you.
Bye.
Good morning, my name is Alice Ceruti and I'm a rice farmer. I started farming 10 years ago. I'm the first generation of rice farming. And when I started, we thought of how could we farm? And the answer was in a more sustainable way. This is why today we are making these choices. We farm in a sustainable way. We are integrated production, but especially we are implementing projects for biodiversity. So we dig ditches around our fields. We planted over 5,000 trees. We turned 5 hectares into woods, all with native species of trees. And now we have this big project. 1/4 of our farm, over 25 hectares, we turned them into wetlands. From rice field to wetlands. Wetlands for biodiversity. So no more cultivating, just biodiversity. Biodiversity, especially birds. So the targets are the migratory birds that nests in this area, in this wetland. Why did we do this project? Because for us, conservation is not enough. Preserving is not enough. We want to give back to nature. For us, quality of rice, quality of our product is not only the product itself, but it is how it is farmed and what is around the cultivation. This is why we decided to turn 25 hectares into wetlands. And this is why we are proud to be certified friend of the earth among the other certifications, because, you know, for us, the consumer awareness is really important. This is why we are always open to tourism, to schools. Anyone can come and see how we farm. On the pack of rice you will find our rice fields, the map of the fields, so anyone can come and see really what is in their plate when they eat our rice, the rice of Cascina Oschiena. But of course not everyone can come. And so this is why we believe in Friend of the Earth, because Friend of the Earth is the soul, is the certification, is something that guarantees that our product is cultivated in a sustainable way, and it has an environmental importance.